Hi, Mama Two Ben, you found me. I don't, all I did was shut my push the button for the camera to be off, and it wouldn't come back. It froze the stream, I guess, right? You guys said it was frozen? I know not to do that again. Sorry. Sorry for being such a big mess up. Now it's going dark. Hi again. Hi, Anna Sweden. Hi, Jackie again. It's turning dark. Look, guys. I guess it froze, Farm Wife. Now it came back. I wonder, well, I have it plugged in and it's all the way charged. I just usually keep it plugged in. You made it back, Steph. Yay. Just took 4 ibuprofen. Because they're little. Steph, do you like these? Hi, Mary. Steph, do you like these scary stories? That's what I was thinking, Farm Wife. Mama too, Leslie. It just got light again. I don't know what's going on, but I guess I'll just start reading. Moo, I don't know if you're back. I hope you are. Moo, are you here? I'll be reading the old ones too again, Steph. I will. I've got a lot of them to read. Yeah, Mama 2. 0 in chat. Says there's 9 here. 10. Good, Anna. Good, good, good. I've been reading a lot of them, Anna. They're spooky Indiana, my state. This one is, like I said before, was Granny's Revenge from Peru, Indiana. That's kind of down by our cottage. I know that there's an Air Force base there. And when we're at our cottage in Buffalo, we'll hear like those supersonic jets go by. You know, those ones that you hear them way before you even see them or something like, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times they're doing their maneuvers. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. We have been through there when we were going different places. It's a ways away, but I wish Jeanette was here. I wanted to ask her a question about her stroke, how long it took her to recover. Okay, good, Leslie, good. Good, okay. I think we should be good. And if Moo's not here, I think we'll be okay. Honey Hush. Oh, Carolyn, yes, I told her again. She said she has told you to send her your URL. Go to your, click on your name. Everybody has a channel, whether you're active or not, just automatically being here on YouTube, signed up. You do have a channel. And she said to copy your URL and send that to her in an email, Honey Hush, so that she can unblock you. Did you send her the URL? Yeah, she told me she's told you over and over to do that, and she hasn't seen it. I'm glad you made it back, Lisa. I don't know that Moo made it back. Yeah, honey hush, I don't know what's going on. I really don't. Okay. Did Sassy Darcy make it back? Well, let's go with Granny's Revenge now. Let's just get started. Yeah, are you sending it to my boo, Lisa? Are you sending it to Carolyn at truecrimechat.org, honey hush? That's not true, honey hush. No, that's not true. She told me she was going to unblock you, but that she can't because of she doesn't have your URL. If she told me she wasn't going to unblock you, I would tell you. I'm totally telling you the truth. Yeah, because I just reminded her the other day. I was so proud because I did remember for a change. Hey, Tina Bina. Hi. Haven't seen you for a while. Honey hush, I couldn't tell you. I'm thinking it must be an accident. Sometimes people get blocked on accident. There's Sassy Darcy. She made it back. Beep, beep. Sassy Darcy, I'm going to get my hair cut by Caroline Connor Wednesday. You had pneumonia? Oh my goodness, Tina. Oh my goodness. Hi, Larky. Glad you're back. I know pneumonia. You can't even lay down, can you? With that and be able to breathe. No, it's going to stay this color. She's just going to touch up the roots and she's going to trim, give me a trim. This is so long, but see, she's going to get those roots that are all over and trim so I can get some body going here, on the top. It's so flat. Oh, on top of the COPD, Tina? That makes, I don't feel like I can breathe. That's right, Steph. What, honey hush, what Steph just said? Yes, Sassy Darcy. Really, honey hush? I don't think Carolyn would. No, just for saying hi to somebody? No, I don't think so. I don't know. I just know she said she's been trying to unblock you. I know she told me that. Keep sending her an email with your URL. Okay? All right? Oh, Tina Bina. I know. I've had that. Like I said before, when I was a little kid, I was in the hospital a few times with it. And then I had it at least once, maybe twice as an adult. That was horrible. I was kicked out of kindergarten as a kid. I was kicked out because I was in the hospital so much with pneumonia. Hi, Tracy Walker. Okay, I'm going to get started here. No, they said, because I went to Jewel's chat. I'll try to email her again, but when I go to Carolyn's chat and say something, no one can see me. That's right, Honey Hush, because you said you're blocked. She needs your URL. Send it to Carolyn at truecrimechat.org. Yes, please try again, Honey Hush, okay? Okay, let's read Granny's Revenge now. Thanks, Tina Bina. You just, like Sassy Darcy said, it needs product. And she's told me what shampoo and stuff to use. But yeah, need to get some product from her too. Sally was elated when the will was read, and she learned that her late grandfather had left her and her two sisters an old house just outside Peru, Indiana. She'd had no idea that her stingy old grandfather owned any property. Thank you, Tina. He'd lived in a boarding house for the last 20 years, the whole of Sally's life. Okay, Lisa. He'd moved into the room after the death of his wife and had groused about the expense ever after. Whenever the sisters came to visit their grandfather, the stingy old curmudgeon had cursed at them because they bore the bloodline of his late wife, whom he hated with a passion. He accused them of courting him for his money, which was laughable, considering the state of destitution he lived in. But the sisters had promised their parents, who died in a fever epidemic in 1887, that they would look after the old man. So they had visited him faithfully. Sally hated every minute of those torturous afternoons, though. Now it turned out that grandfather had plenty of money all along and a house to boot. From penury to plenty in 1 hour, said her sister Maud when they left the attorney's office. Why did he live in poverty? Asked Erlene, the youngest sister. Who knows, Sally said with an expressive wave of her hand. He was a crackpot. The three sisters decided to move into their new house immediately. They'd been renting a 2-room cottage, which was far too small for the three of them. While Sally gave notice to their landlord, her sisters packed their belongings into a hired wagon. As they drove over the rain-rutted roads toward Peru, rain-rutted roads, here, I'm putting her email right in here. Because you obviously aren't sending it to the right email, Honey Hush. Carolyn, see, I'm so slow on this computer. At consumption. Wasn't that some kind of a lung thing as well? I know I heard of that a lot, consumption. No, I don't have that where it says the email. I just put it right there, Honey Hush. Do you see it? By my name? It's tuberculosis? Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay. Let's go back to Granny's revenge. These are young sisters, too. Sally's only 20 years old, and Erlene's the youngest. It doesn't say if Maud's the middle kid or the oldest. Okay, the three sisters decided to move into their new house immediately. They'd been renting a 2-room cottage, which was far too small for the three of them. While Sally gave notice to their landlord, her sisters packed their belongings into a hired wagon. As they drove over the rain-rutted roads toward Peru, they rejoiced in their good fortune. I wonder why Grandfather never mentioned the house, Erlene said nervously as they drove along the narrow lane leading toward town. You'd think he'd have lived in it all these years. Do you think something is wrong? I think the only thing wrong was Grandfather, said Maud briskly. He was crazy in the head, Erlene. Imagine living in a boarding house when he owned property in Peru. Okay, honey, hush. Well, just try it again, okay? Make sure you send her your URL. That's what I mean, said Erlene. There must be something wrong with the house. Grandfather wouldn't have paid a penny to live in a boarding house unless he had to. Grandfather was strange, Erlene, Sally said crisply, urging the horse into a trot. That's your answer. Sally was eager to get to Peru to claim their inheritance. They'd been poor all their lives. Suddenly they had property and a house of their own. Who cared why the strange old man had abandoned it? She touched the huge iron door key in the pocket of her shabby overcoat. It was the key to their new life. Following the directions the attorney had given them when he dropped off the key, Sally made her way across town and eventually turned down a narrow road leading to their new home. Twilight was falling when they reached the gate, and Sally pulled the horse to a halt so they could inspect the property. Wish Alicia was here. She would be saying, there goes the horses again. Shorty. A silence fell over the sisters as they looked at the sway-back old house with its sagging roof, cracked window panes, and ivy-covered walls. Several floorboards were missing from the front porch, and the steps were so warped they seemed to lead toward the side yard instead of the front door. Dark, shadowy woods crept to the very edge of the property, and shadows skulked in the overgrown garden. Erlene gulped audibly, and Sally bit back an exclamation of horror. No comfortable homecoming awaited them here. The fireplaces were probably blocked, and she wouldn't be surprised if squirrels had colonized the attic. Still, it belonged to them with no debts attached to it for whatever it was worth. Well, it's ours, Maud said at last, unconsciously echoing Sally's thoughts. Come on, there's a barn out back. Let's put the horse in there and get the wagon unloaded before it's too dark to see. Maud was the practical sister. The sisters stabled the horse in the run-down old barn and then carried the most essential bundles toward the house. It looked just as downtrodden and spooky from the back as it did from the front. Suddenly, Erlene gasped and grabbed Sally's arm. What's that? She shrieked, gesturing towards a second-story window as Sally dropped her parcels all over the ground. What's that? Snapped Sally as she bent to retrieve her boxes. I saw something in the window, cried Erlene. Nonsense, said Maud and Sally almost simultaneously. I was staring at the house the whole time, Maud continued. There's nothing there. The three sisters studied the darkened building for a long moment. Nothing moved in the shadows. There wasn't even a stray breeze to stir the riot of ivy that covered everything. It would be very easy to imagine a dark figure staring out of one of those empty dark rectangles, Sally thought nervously. The old house seemed to loom over them with an air of doom that made her flesh creep. Nonsense, Maud said again, breaking the silence. Let's go in. She marched up the weed-entangled walkway and pushed at the back door. You need the key, Sally called to Maud, but Maud didn't need the key. With a long, low moan, the door swung open. Erlene shrieked against the sound. Sally wanted to shake her younger sister. Erlene was making them nervous on purpose, she was sure. Honestly, that girl had never grown up. Sally marched up to the door and followed Maud inside. She stepped into a shadowy room that might have been the kitchen. It was impossible to see anything through the ivy-strewn window, especially now that twilight had fallen over the garden outside. Maud fumbled in her topmost box and pulled out a lantern. After a few fumbles, she lit it and held it up. The sisters gazed around the ramshackle kitchen. The massive fireplace was a gaping black mouth at the far end of the room. The pump in the sink was red with rust. The table in the middle of the room sagged as badly in the center as the roof did. There are 6 inches of dust in here, Maud said with a sneeze. And rats have made a nest in that kettle. She gestured to an overturned black pot lying in the fireplace. We don't dare make a fire until we've checked to see if the chimney is blocked. Maud strode forward and dumped her packages on the sagging table. Sally left hers by the pump, and Erlene crept cautiously through the back door to lay her parcels near the fireplace. Her teeth were chattering as she eyed the door-shaped black gap in the wall beside the fireplace. Should we explore now or wait until morning? Erlene asked. I, for one, do not want to sleep in the kitchen, Sally said firmly. Let's explore. As Sally walked toward the door, the air around her grew frigid and crisp, as if she'd stepped outside on a cold winter morning. Her breath iced up in the lantern light, and for a moment she thought she heard a woman's voice whisper, "Ah," somewhere inside her skull. What was that? Sally asked sharply, whirling to look around. Maud, busy wiping dust off the table, looked around irritably. Now who's being a fraidy cat? She asked. Come on. Maud walked into the hall, carrying the oval yellow light of the lantern with her. The shadows she left behind were too dark for comfort. Sally and Erlene scuttled after her. The sisters passed through room after room. What furniture there was had splintered or rotted away. An old piano was missing most of its keys. A floor-to-ceiling bookcase was filled with mildewed volumes. Dusty cobwebs were so thick they floated down from the ceiling like wedding veils and stirred ominously in the breeze of the sisters' passing. Maud creaked her way upstairs, leaving footprints on every step. Sally was right on her heels, with Erlene whimpering at the rear. When a rat scuttled across the landing, Erlene screamed. Hush, Maud and Sally said together. They didn't like making noise in that creepy old house. Sally was afraid they might awaken something that was best left asleep. The 3 sisters turned the corner into the upper hall and looked into several old bedrooms. The largest contained a massive canopy bed with the canopy closed. Ooh, canopy closed? There was so much dust on the canopy that it was impossible to tell what color it was. The sisters surveyed it in the flickering lantern light. I always wanted a canopy bed when I was young. I hope you guys are still here. It's getting like really dark for some reason. Can you guys? Okay, Steph, thanks. I was getting nervous. Okay, Anna from Sweden. The sisters surveyed it in the flickering lantern light. I don't think so, Maud said slowly into the silence. The air in the room was even colder than it had been in the kitchen, and Sally could almost picture a malevolent figure crouched behind that curtain. I think we should sleep in another room, Sally said firmly, pushing Erlene back into the dusty, cobweb-strewn hallway. In the end, the sisters retreated to the front bedroom, the only one with a window clear of ivy. The rising moon lit the dusty floor as they carried their bedding inside. Okay, Lark. There was a narrow bed in the corner, but it had been colonized by mice, and none of the sisters chose to sleep in it. They settled on the floor under their blankets and prepared to spend their first night in their new home. It was after midnight when Sally woke suddenly, sure someone had called her name. She looked around the room, still bright with moonlight. Erlene was curled up under the window, asleep with the blanket pulled up to her eyeballs, as if to protect herself from evil spirits. But Maud's place was empty. Her blanket was strewn across the floor, and there was a dust-free spot where her body had lain. That was all. Maudie, Sally called softly, trying not to awaken Erlene. Where are you? Sally got up and picked up the lantern. Maybe Maud had gone to the privy. There was a broken-down old outhouse near the barn. She lit the lantern and stepped into the hallway to look out the window at the end. Which faced the backyard and the barn. Maudie, she called as she walked past the gaping black holes that were the doorways to the other bedrooms. The air around her grew colder as she neared the door to the main bedroom. Sally refused to look in at the canopied monstrosity inside. Surely Maud wouldn't go in there. She glanced out the back window into the moonlit yard. It was empty. Sally's neck pricked suddenly, and every hair on her body rose up in terror. There was something behind her. She could feel its presence on her skin. She whirled around, lantern raised in defense, and saw a glowing woman with a crushed face and a curved blade half embedded in her skull, hovering in the air, a foot behind her. She held a long, sharp scythe in her translucent hands. Child of my husband's, get! How dare you come to this place where I was murdered? The phantom screamed, raising the scythe. Sally gasped in shock. She recognized the figure at once from an old photograph. It was her old granny. Sally did not have time to ponder this revelation, for just then Granny swung the scythe straight at her head, meaning to decapitate her living granddaughter. Sally screamed and dodged into the first doorway she could find, the lantern falling to the floor of the hallway behind her. She rushed into the master bedroom and fell over something warm and sticky and foul. In the wildly flickering light of the fallen lantern, Sally saw the bloody body of her sister Maud, which had been sliced in half from head to toe. Sally rolled through a warm puddle of gore, dodging the flailing scythe blade and somehow managing to get to her feet. She ran around the massive bed, the ghost on her heels, cursing and swinging. Sally leapt through the curtains into pitch darkness, rolled across a bony figure. It felt like a skeleton, and barreled through the other side, wrapped in rotting, dusty curtains. The phantom granny followed her, screeching and swinging the scythe. Erlene came running into the master bedroom, shouting for her sisters. She took one look at the glowing figure of her dead granny, the remains of the skeleton on the bed, the two halves of her eldest sister on the floor, and the curtain wrapped monstrosity that was Sally, stumbling toward her, and ran screaming down the hall. There was a sudden thumping sound, and the scream stopped abruptly. Sally ripped off the curtain at last and threw it on the floor, where it covered the gruesome remains of her sister Maud. She ran out into the hallway and saw the body of her baby sister at the bottom of the stairs. Erlene's head was cocked at a strange angle. She was obviously dead of a broken neck. "Dear God in heaven," Sally screamed. Then she whirled around as the phantom of her grandmother floated out of the master bedroom, scythe in hand. "Hi, Annie B." "Granny, why are you killing us?" Sally shouted, her body shaking from head to toe. "Your grandfather killed me for my money," Granny shouted back, her crushed face twisted in rage. "As I coughed out the last of my life on that bed, I swore I would eradicate his line forever from this earth. He escaped my wrath, but you will not." The phantom scythe blade embedded in her skull seemed to catch fire as Granny's ghost swooped towards Sally. Sally raced into the front bedroom and flung herself out the window, glass shattering all over the place as she fell down and down. As Sally bounced onto the roof of the front porch, she stared at the phantom of her grandmother, who came right through the window after her granddaughter, scythe held in front of her like a sword. Sally rolled off the roof and fell into a briar bush. She pulled herself out of the brambles, barely noticing them ripping her clothing to shreds as she ran toward the lane. She'd read somewhere that ghosts were tied to the place where they died. If she could just reach the edge of the property, she would be safe. Sally felt the swish of the scythe blade cut off part of her long hair. She kept running, not looking back. The lane was right in front of her. Then a massive pain bit through her neck, and for one terrible instant, she knew the scythe had caught her as she ran. Then the world disappeared, and Sally's head flew off her body and rolled away into the shrubbery. The ghost of Granny shouted in triumph as she hovered above the slumped figure of her dead granddaughter. Her revenge was complete. Right stuff. These are just pleasant bedtime stories. Part 2, Powers of Darkness and Light. Prayer, Powers of Darkness and Light. Hey, this one reread too. Or wait, yeah. I think I already read this one actually.
And read it again.
No. Yeah, this was San Pierre, Indiana, Dogface Bridge. I already had read this one. Yeah. Okay, we're going to Diamond Ring, Newburgh, Indiana. It was a fine diamond ring, a mighty fine diamond ring. It flashed and sparkled on the hand of the old farmer's wife. Uh-oh, is the farmer's wife back in here? Did she come back in? Farmer's wife, are you still here? Farmer's wife. It sparkled on the hand of the old farmer's wife as she hurried back and forth, setting dishes onto the long serving tables. Mom of two men said, "Hi, Lexi." She said, "Hi."
Oh, hello.
As she hurried back and forth, setting dishes onto the long serving tables on the lawn of the church. On that sunny August day,
Garnet.
Steph said, "You have such a great smile." Garnet! She is in the refrigerator, guys. Garnet is right on one of the shelves in there, going into the very
All right,
back.
come on.
You can put that on the stove, actually. Let it warm up. I'm going to give
Yeah,
some
get
of
out of
that
there.
meat in there to the dogs. Oh my
Weirdo.
gosh. Steph said, "You have a great smile."
Thank you.
On that sunny August day in the late 1880s, the church was having its annual picnic. It was a grand occasion. So many folks had come in wagons and buggies and on foot and bicycles that there was hardly room to move about. The benches around the picnic tables were so full that families were eating in shifts. Several church folks were playing music on fiddles, guitars, and other instruments. The Reverend was wandering through the crowd with a kind word for everyone, and the grandmother was helping out with a brand new diamond ring gleaming on her wrinkled old hand. The townsfolks weren't too rich in those days, with nary a dime to spare on extras, so the ring was quite a novelty item to many. The women gathered around the grandmother to ooh and ah over the diamond ring and to give advice on the best way to keep it clean. The old farmer had worked hard to put that diamond ring on his old wife's hand. Now he stood listening to the chatter, beaming in delight. The Jackson brothers were smiling too, but not in a neighborly way. You see, the Jackson brothers were trouble. They liked money. Oh, yes, they did, but they didn't like working for it. When they saw the diamond ring on the grandmother's hand, they wanted it. They wanted it bad. "We got to get that ring," the elder Jackson said to his brother. "We could sell it for a bundle and live the good life." "We could afford to go to California," the younger Jackson agreed enthusiastically. "How much do you think it costs the old man?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out," the elder Jackson said. He wandered casually over to the granddad and started talking to him about the weather, crops, and raising horses. "Alicia, where are you?" The old farmer was pleasantly surprised by this attention from the normally sullen young man. Then Jackson said, "I was thinking of proposing to my best gal. I'd like to give her a ring like the one your wife is wearing. Would you sell it to me?" The granddad's face wrinkled with disgust. He knew very well the Jackson boy wasn't courting anyone at present and had no money for a ring. He was just fishing for information in a vulgar manner that the granddad deplored. "The ring is not for sale," he said with dignity and walked away. The elder Jackson glared after him. Who did that snobby old man think he was, treating a Jackson with such rudeness? He marched back to his brother, muttering under his breath. He would have that diamond ring, and it would pay for a better life for him and his brother. Oh, yes. The Jackson boys made every excuse they could to drop by the old farmer's house, hoping to steal the diamond ring the second she took it off. To no avail. It never left her hand. The grandmother wore the ring to bed, when she bathed, and even when she made bread, turning the diamond toward her palm so the sticky dough wouldn't pull it loose. The Jacksons were about to give up their get-rich-quick scheme when the old lady suddenly fell ill and passed away. They were overjoyed at the news. Wow, really? What nice brothers. They figured the granddad would put his wife's diamond away somewhere safe, and they'd slip in while he was out tending stock and steal it. They'd be on a train for California long before he knew it was gone. The Jackson brothers went to the grandmother's funeral, hoping to discover the fate of the diamond ring. Would the old man keep it himself or give it to one of his children? They were so impatient to interview the chief mourners that they hardly heard a word of the memorial service. As they went up to pay their last respects, the eyes of the younger Jackson fell on the corpse. "It's there," he gasped, grabbing his brother's arm. "He left it on her finger." The elder Jackson looked at the old lady and frowned in dismay. The diamond still glittered on her wrinkled hand. The farmer was going to bury it with her. "Bad, that's bad," said the younger brother. The elder Jackson hushed him. "Not so bad," he murmured. "In fact, it's positively ideal." The younger brother looked at him curiously and then realized what he meant. After the old lady was buried, no one would notice if her ring went missing. He smothered a chuckle and composed his face into a suitably mournful expression as the elder Jackson steered him toward the granddad, standing near the casket with his grown daughter and son. Late that night, the Jackson brothers snuck back into the churchyard, carrying 2 shovels and a lantern. They commenced digging out the loosened dirt that covered the newly buried casket. It was heavy, hot work, but greed spurred them onward. "Bless you." After a long, sticky interval, they cleared the lid of the casket and pried it open. The old lady lay serenely inside, eyes closed, wrinkled hands folded so the diamond ring was on top. Jackson, the elder, gave a greedy grunt and tugged at the old lady's hand with his dirty paw. You guys see that? Why does that keep happening? You see the lights there, right? That keep. Okay, I think it's from across past the woods. I'm talking about this in here. You see that? Can you see? It did this last time too, remember? Really? I think you solved it. Okay. It's kitty cats. Okay, thank you. I was freaking out a little. Let's see. Okay. Jackson, the elder, gave a greedy grunt and tugged at the old lady's hand with his dirty paw, determined to wrench off the prize and bear it away. But the diamond ring was stuck on her finger. He couldn't get it off. "Let me try," the younger Jackson said impatiently. He tugged and pulled, dislodging a quantity of dirt upon the lined face of the poor deceased grandmother. If the boy had chanced to look at her face in the dim light of the lantern, He might have noticed it was no longer serene. Steph. A tiny frown had formed on her wide mouth, but neither Jackson noticed. Ew. We'll have to cut it off, the elder Jackson said, pulling out his knife. What are you talking about, viewer? Do you regret the doxing you have done to innocent people? Proof is about to be revealed. Why did you do it? Do you think MRB will stand by you like you stood by her? Who did I dox? Innocent people. You're so innocent. If I doxed him, what can I do? I don't even know that I did, but I never have done it that I know of, but you guys like to say I did. I'm going to get a screenshot, but I can't really do that. I can never remember what people say. And Moo is here. Let me get a picture, and then I'm deleting it. Because I think you're funny. I got to have that. I don't. There we go. Gotcha. You got it, Mom? Okay. Bye, viewer. Viewer, what's your name? I want to dox you, honey. Thanks, Annie B. I'm going to look you up now, viewer. Find out who you are by your URL, and I'm going to have that all over the screen tomorrow. Okay? Bye. Giving them one more chance. Maybe they'll be nice. I just erased it. I didn't block them, but if they say anything mean again, then they're getting blocked. Okay. We'll have to cut it off, the elder Jackson said, pulling out his knife. Won't that be bloody? Asked the younger boy. Don't know, don't care, said the elder Jackson. Then he commenced a sawing at the old lady's finger, and the old lady screamed and sat up straight in her coffin. The two brothers reeled back in horror as her blue eyes opened and glared at them accusingly. When she screamed again and clutched her injured finger, the Jacksons scrambled up and out of the grave in a panic. Their screams were even louder than those of the grandmother. Haints, ghosts, zombies, the younger Jackson shouted, his feet seeming to take wing. She's done rose from the dead to punish us for stealing her ring, roared the elder Jackson. The brothers made tracks for the nearest railroad station and leapt aboard an empty coal car of the first passing train. They were never seen again. Ugh. Back in the graveyard, that's why I went, ugh, right here. The grandmother climbed shakily out of her casket, pulling herself out of the hole, and walked home. Her husband nearly had a heart attack when he opened his door around midnight and saw his dead wife standing there with her bleeding finger and dirt-stained clothes. The whole family was staying overnight, and they screamed and hollered in terror, thinking she was a ghost. Then they laughed and cried and thanked the good Lord for those two wretched Jackson boys who'd saved the life of their grandmother, whom they'd actually buried alive. Okay, tell me what I do, viewer. What's my fam? I want to know, viewer, myself. Tell me what I did. That's creepy. Isn't that creepy, Tina? Viewer, why don't you listen to the scary stories? Just chill, okay? Take a chill pill. Just be nice. Okay, cool. Ooh, it's creepy. Sounds like a Twilight Zone one, doesn't it? What'd you think of that one, viewer? Yeah, I want to know. Please tell me. It was weird. This one's called Bloody Mary Whales. Hey, Linda Fisher. This one's from Lake County, which is the county that I live in. Oh, I doxed myself. I know, Steph. I know. Lindy. I hope I said Lindy Fisher. Oh, Tina, really? Was that in your house? Or was that like at a funeral home, Tina? That sounds like a scary story, Tina. And so does yours, viewer. The road has ended and you know it. Time to show your fam that you hide what you are really doing. I look over and I kid you not, she was sitting up in the casket. She smiled and winked at me and laid down. Tina, come on. Really, Tina? Well, Tina, hey, I believe you. I do. She smiled and winked at you, and she was your favorite aunt. I believe you. She was letting you know how special you were to her. I believe it. Right, Annie. Listen to Annie B, viewer. Just tell me so I can tell my family. Lindy. Lindy Fisher. Yeah. I never give a good thumbs up. I always feel so awkward. Why can't I do it? I do it so weird. Like, everybody else looks like, oh, good. I always do so weird. I believe you, Tina. It gives me the creeps, though, but I do believe you. Okay, can I read now, viewer? Can you listen to this story? Oh, look, they took their message away. Do you, Steph? Yeah, I never even noticed how weird mine is, until I started trying to do it on here and stuff. Woohoo, but it's like, what am I doing wrong, Is that woohoo? Yay, yeah, woohoo. Okay, let's see if viewer can be quiet through Bloody Mary Wales, Lake County. Ooh, Tina, you really had an experience. I believe that. I do. Steph. You guys are all so funny. Old Man Wales was a 19th century farmer. I believe you, Tina. I do. Who loved money more than anything except his wife. I wish Farm Wife was in here. Maybe it's better that she's not. In his lust for wealth, he supplemented his farm income by catching runaway slaves who were escaping to freedom through Indiana. Wales would chain the ex-slaves up in his barn cellar until he could collect the reward on them. And when he couldn't find slaves, he'd capture free men and sell them into slavery. Wales hated just about every human being on earth, except for his Virginia. She was a gentle soul who lived in fear of her stern husband, though she loved him devotedly and had no idea how much he cherished her in return, for he was not a demonstrative man. Then things changed. The Civil War ended slavery, a disaster for the evil Wales, who no longer had a profitable source of income to supplement his farm work, and Virginia died in childbirth. You are seconds, hours, days away from dying from your own karma. That's why you hurt each other. You hurt others. Time to show your fam. Viewer, what's your name? Is that your full name? Viewer, let's hear your name. My name's Debbie Mock, and I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. Trust me, we have lots of protection here. And we got you. We got you saying that. You don't scare me. You're nothing but a troll. That's all you are. Right, Mom? 2 men? Yeah, look. Who got that screenshot? I hope somebody did. Since viewer, hurry up and took it away. Because they're so brave. Somebody got it, I hope. Woohoo, Mama 2 men. Okay, Mom. It's fun calling you Mom. Oh. Well, yeah, karma usually is your own and yours only, Very true. Can't argue with you there, viewer. Now, can we listen to the rest of the story, please? Viewer, can you just settle down and listen? Then things changed. The Civil War ended slavery, a disaster for the evil Wales, who no longer had a profitable source of income to supplement his farm work, and Virginia died in childbirth. Overnight, Wales fell to pieces. He hated the child, a little girl his wife had named Mary, but he raised her for Virginia's sake. As for himself, he withdrew from the world, neglecting his farm and half starving his child. Mary was a beautiful girl with lovely blonde curls falling in a tangle down her back. She dressed in filthy rags. When she was in town, she never spoke to anyone except her sullen, angry father. Old man Wales somehow scratched out a living from his farm, enough to keep himself and his daughter alive, but he took to drinking heavily as the years went by, and Mary did most of the farm work as well as the cooking and housekeeping. Could you turn that down a little, Lex? Lex, could you turn that down a little?
No.
You're sounding like you're watching something Grandpa does. Let me get a drink. Viewer, you liking this story? I hope you do. I hope you do, viewer. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please don't leave, viewer. We don't really want you to go. Whenever she had a moment, Mary escaped into books where she found a fantasy world much more to her liking than the world she lived in. Sometimes she wondered if she could do anything to win her father's affection. She tried so hard, but he remained cruel and distant, and his loathing became increasingly more apparent as she grew older. Unbeknownst to the girl, she grew ever lovelier as she neared adulthood, and the resemblance to her dead mother was striking. Wales saw his dead wife every time he looked at the child who had caused her death. One night, after a heavy bout of drinking, Wales stumbled home with an aching head, and a black rage in his heart over the cruelty of a world that would deprive him of Virginia. The person at fault for this dastardly crime lay sleeping peacefully in her bed, and Wales could not stand the thought. Grabbing the knife he used to slaughter his pigs, oh no, I hope it's not going to be another one of these. Wales lumbered into Mary's bedroom and stabbed her to death, flailing at her repeatedly as if she were an attacking bear rather than a sleeping girl. Mary woke, screaming, and thrashed around in agony, trying to fight off her demonic father, as blood spurted everywhere and bits of torn flesh littered the bedclothes and fell to the floor. When she stopped moving, Wales reeled out of the room in satisfaction, leaving a bloody corpse in his wake. Mary's head was nearly severed, and her body lay half on and half off the bed, her ragged dress covered in gore, while hanks of her blonde hair trailed in the pool of blood accumulating on the floor beneath her bed. It did, didn't it? Right, Lisa? This book gets gorier and gorier as we go through it, doesn't it? When old man Wales woke the next morning, his head finally clear of the whiskey-induced haze, he staggered into the bedroom. I can just imagine that, Lisa. He staggered into the bedroom to inspect his work. The sight of his Bloody Mary brought a demonic smile to his lips. He should have killed her years ago, he decided, but she'd made quite a mess, and he didn't want the tramp littering up his house, not even in death. So he slung Mary over his shoulder and carried her down to the basement where he'd once kept captured slaves. He dug an indifferent grave and tossed her body into it. And that was the end of Mary, or so he thought. 2 nights later, when Old Man Wales came back from doing his nightly chores at the barn, he found Mary standing in the kitchen, her nearly severed head lolling against one shoulder as she stirred an empty kettle. A pool of steaming blood lay beneath her feet, and bits of skin from her knife-slashed face was breaking off and falling into the kettle. Old Man Wales screamed and reeled back in shock. At the sound, Bloody Mary looked up from her stirring and smiled, crossed her knife-split mouth, widening until it showed shattered teeth. Father? Father, she hissed, and launched herself across the room at her father, the wooden spoon in her hand held like a knife. Old Man Wales leapt backward out of the kitchen door and fled to the barn. When he chanced to look over his shoulder, the apparition was gone. He spent a sleepless night, the night in the barn, fortifying himself with a keg of whiskey he kept there for emergencies. In the morning, he staggered into the house carrying his axe for protection. The house was in its customary squalor, and there was no bloody pool on the kitchen floor. The kettle hung demurely from its iron hook at the side of the hearth. Another drink. Well, get a drink, Mom. I know, Lisa. We'll just put it this way, supposedly true, Tales of hauntings, strange happenings, and other local lore. Bloody Mary. Oh, okay. Old Man Wales sucked in a terrified breath and then relaxed. He'd probably been drunk last night and imagined the whole thing, he decided, forgetting he hadn't started drinking until after he'd seen Bloody Mary. A week passed. Old Man Wales went about his chores, whistling cheerfully, feeling better than he had in years. He brought a newspaper home from the mercantile, and sat down by the hearth in the chair he'd favored when Virginia was alive to read it. As he turned to page 2, he glanced up and saw Bloody Mary sitting in the chair opposite him, her knife-slashed dress covered in blood. Her pale skin was shattered by knife blows, the cuts raw and bleeding, and her sliced-up hands were busy knitting him a shirt. Ooh. She had to jerk her half-severed head sideways to look at him with eyes that glowed red with hatred. Father, Father, she hissed through knife-scored lips. Then she smiled, showing all of her broken teeth, now razor sharp points that bit down on a tattered tongue. Blood pooled under her chair and fell from her body like rain as she flew across the room toward him, knitting needles held like knives. Old Man Wales screamed and reeled away, his chair smashing to the floor as he fled from the house. He felt a slashing pain across his back as he leapt through the back door. It was only when he'd safely reached the barn that he stopped to assess the damage. His shirt was in tatters, and 2 long gashes scored deeply in his back like the cuts of a butcher knife or 2 sharpened knitting needles. Oh, that sounds good. That's what Mama 2 Men's wanting. Actually sounds good to me too. Bloody Marys are good. I haven't had one in forever. Yes, they are so good. There was a Bloody Mary bar when we were down in Orange Beach, Alabama, at the hotel. They had that set up for us one day. Boy, it was nice. All the fixins, salami, cheese, olives, celery, all kinds of stuff. Man, was it good. Yum. Now I want a freaking Bloody Mary myself. Wish I could make one for anybody that wanted one. Just hand them out. Here you go. Here you go. Even you, viewer. Even you, viewer. The 2 long gashes scored deeply into his back like the cuts of a butcher knife or 2 sharpened knitting needles. The murderous widower did not go back into the house for days. He slept in the barn and cooked meals around a bonfire he built in the pasture where he kept his cows. Then he grew tired of this nonsense. It was all his imagination. Too much whiskey before bed, he told himself. He allowed himself only 1 drink before bedding down in the barn that night, and in the morning he marched straight up to the weedy walkway and into his house. He'd get cleaned up, shave, and go to town this morning, he'd decided. It was time he took his place in the community once more. So he pumped himself a bucket of water at the kitchen sink, washed up, and then took an ewer, E-W-E-R, of water. You can call it brunch, Annie B. Brunch. Bloody Marys go great with brunch. Of water over to the little mirror kept on the far wall for shaving. He set it down on the table and looked into the mirror, right into the glowing red eyes of Bloody Mary. Don't chew my straw, please. You love to do that. Looked in the mirror right into the garnet, right into the eyes of glowing red eyes of Bloody Mary. Her shattered face was knife-scored. Her once fair lips were split down the center, and blood dripped from them as she smiled at him. Father, she hissed through razor-sharp, blood-stained teeth. A piece of her lip broke off and fell out of sight below the bottom of the mirror as she spoke. She raised blood-stained fingers, her nails long and sharpened like the claws of a beast, and reached right out of the mirror toward her father, slapping him twice across the face. Old Man Wales seared and screamed in searing pain as her nails clawed into him and blood streamed from 4 slashes. A bloody visitor? Please. Okay, Annie B, thank you. And Lisa's just doing her nails, relaxing, making them bloody red and sharp, looking in the mirror. Old Man Wales screamed in searing pain as her nails clawed into him, and blood streamed from 4 slashes, 2 on either cheek. As he ran from the house toward the safety of the barn, he leapt through the door of the barn, his heart pounding so hard his chest ached with it. He swiped at his bloody cheeks as if wiping away tears, panting desperately. I know, Lisa. I know. I'm just laughing because I know that's what you're doing. No, I'm going to get the hiccups. The dust from the hay bales in the loft above tickled his nose, and he sneezed, eyes streaming. He swiped at his eyes with his bloody hand, and they stung as gore leapt into them. Tramp! Bloody witch! He shouted, half blinded by blood, tears, and fear. Father! A voice hissed behind him. Old Man Wales whirled around with a shriek. Bloody Mary stood smiling at him through her bloody razor-sharp teeth, her tattered tongue bleeding from several places, as if it had been scored by a butcher's knife. Her head listed to one side as blood streamed from the wound that had nearly decapitated her. The vicious pool of steaming blood at her feet flowed slowly toward him. She pointed above her head. Her murderous father lifted his stunned eyes and saw a noose hanging from the rafters beside the ladder to the loft. The rope looked inviting, hanging there in a dust-speckled sunbeam, hanging there so peaceful and still. Bloody hell. Old Man Wales stepped forward and placed his bloody hands on the rung of the ladder. He started to climb. And that's the end for tonight. I hope everybody gets to sleep really well tonight. The one we'll read next time, The Dance. Chapter 16, The Dance from Miami County. It's real short. I might read it. Let's see. All right, I'll read this one. Shouldn't take too long. Or do you guys, okay. One more, says Steph. Scare us and leave us. Everybody that's like in the UK and it's daytime, please be careful, because you are watched during the day. And they will be waiting for you at night. Yes, Mom of Two. Thank you. I'm going to read one more. The Dance. Marie Elise was furious with her beau for being late tonight, of all nights. It was the night of the big holiday dance, and her beau had promised he would pick her up in his sleigh an hour before the party started so she could dance every dance. He'd promised. Here it was, nearly 8 o'clock, and the dance started at 8:30, and still no sign of him. She glared at the clock and then went back to the mirror to straighten her hair. This will all be gone come Wednesday night. Like magic. If you'd stop pacing, your hair would stay in place, her mother called from the fireside chair. She was knitting placidly, ignoring her daughter's anger. Maria Elise frowned at her mother. Maria Elise. We'll call her Lisa Elise. Lisa Elise frowned at her mother and started pacing back and forth across the sitting room, her long skirts swirling against the carpet as she walked to and fro. I will never forgive Ned for making us late to the dance, she exclaimed as she paced. Never, 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 said Lisa H. You're acting like a 2-year-old child, her mother remarked, turning the heel on her sock she was knitting. Turning the heel on the sock she was knitting. Has it occurred to you that Ned might not be coming tonight? Her daughter stopped in her tracks, her pretty red mouth dropping open in shock. Not coming? Of course he's coming. I'm the prettiest girl in school, and he's the handsomest boy. He'd never go to the dance with someone else. Her mother eyed her wryly. Riley. She and her husband had made a mistake in spoiling Lisa H. They had indulged her too much as a child, and now were repenting it. She was vain as a kitten, and her head was empty of everything but frills and frocks and boys. She expected everyone and everything to fall in with her plans, and she threw a tantrum anytime something didn't go her way. I hope you're still here, Lisa H. We have your story. I meant that it's extremely cold tonight and snow is falling, her mother said. Ned might not be able to make it through the storm. Of course he can. What's a little cold and snow compared to the wonders of the dance? Lisa H. whirled around the room, demonstrating a fancy waltz turn as she spoke. Anyway, I don't care if Ned comes or not, she added with a pout of her red lips. I would go to the dance with anyone who will take me. I'd even go with the devil himself if he asked me politely, just so long as I could go to the dance. Lisa H., watch your tongue. I know, I'm just being silly, Mom at 2 men. Her mother was shocked. She'd raised her daughter to be a God-fearing, church-going young woman. Such talk of the devil was sacrilegious and maybe even dangerous. There's Lisa. A tiny voice, and maybe even dangerous, a tiny voice murmured at the back of her mind. I wouldn't mind if the devil did take me to the dance, Lisa H. said boldly. It would make me stand out from the other girls. Before her mother could remonstrate further, they heard the sound of sleigh bells approaching. Lisa H. exclaimed excitedly and ran to look out the window into the snowy lane. Approaching the house was an elegant sleigh pulled by 2 midnight black horses. Shorties. that looked like ink blots against the white snow. "Oh, Ned has rented a fancy sleigh for the night," Lisa H. cried happily. "I told you he wouldn't take anyone else to the dance. He knows I'm the prettiest girl in school, in the whole county, maybe in the whole state." She danced around the room for a moment, long skirts swirling about her. Then she ran to get her cloak and her high cape and her muff as footsteps sounded on the porch and the knocker rapped against the front door. "Get the door, Mother," Lisa H. called as she scrambled into her outdoor clothing. Her mother sighed, put down her knitting, and went to the door. She opened it with a smile, for she rather liked Ned, who was always polite to her, and her hard-working husband. The open door revealed a very handsome stranger standing on the stoop with hat in his hand, snowflakes melting on his dark curly hair. "Good evening," the mother said politely. "May I help you?" Before the stranger could speak, the mother was shoved rudely aside by Lisa H., who exclaimed, "I won't forgive you for being so late, Ned Black." Lisa H. stopped in mid-sentence when she saw the stranger, who reached past her to steady her poor mother, who'd fallen against the doorframe. "Who are you?" Lisa H. cried rudely. Then she blinked, realizing this dark stranger was twice as handsome as Ned, and primped her long golden curls and added in her sweetest tone, "Can I help you with something? Are you lost?" "Not lost. I'm here on behalf of Ned," the dark-haired, dark-eyed charmer said smoothly. "He was called away to see a dying relative and asked me to take you to the dance tonight in his place. He didn't want to disappoint you. Hi, Angie Brooks." "How very kind of him," gurgled Lisa H. "And even kinder of you." She cooed the last three words and then stepped out on the porch to take his arm. In the doorway, her mother frowned. "What is your name, sir? Who are your folks?" she asked. "Won't you come in and let us get to know you better?" she asked. "Lisa H., we should invite him in to get warmed up." The mother stared cleanly at the stranger, feeling uneasy. His hand, when he steadied her, had been too warm. His touch had nearly burnt her, even through the thick layers of her winter dress, and there was a red glint in his eye that she did not like. Her daughter had just invoked in the name of the devil, and now here was this stranger standing on their doorstep with his reddish eyes and haughty smile and hot skin. "Mother, don't fuss," Lisa H. exclaimed, flushing with anger. Her pretty red lips pursed sourly. "You have nothing to fear, madam," the stranger said with an odd smile. "You have nothing to fear, madam." Was she the only one who heard the emphasis on the first word? The mother wondered. "You have nothing to fear." "Lisa H., remember what you have just said," the mother said, reaching desperately for her daughter. Lisa H. stepped away, glaring at her mother with real hatred in her blue eyes. "I said it once and I'll say it again," the young woman said tartly. "I am going to the dance no matter what. I'd even go with the devil himself if he asked me politely, just so long as I go to the dance." "And will you accompany me tonight, my fair lady?" asked the stranger, with a charming smile and a bow. Sir, I will, Lisa H. replied with an equally charming smile. Then the young woman curtsied, turned her back upon her mother, and walked with her escort down the steps and out to the waiting sleigh. The mother stared fearfully after her daughter, and when Lisa H. stepped up into the seat and drove away with the strange man to the tintinabulation. Hi, Kristen Vita said, glad you're here. Of sleigh bells. She buried her face in her hands and wept. Here's an illustration of them. Thank you for coming, Kristen. Lisa H. exclaimed excitedly over the fancy sleigh, the fine midnight black horses, and the falling snow, so pretty and delicate. The handsome stranger laughed and spoke sweetly to the girl of fancy balls attended, far-off places visited, and exotic sights seen. The trees flashed by in the light of the carriage lanterns, blurring slightly with their speed. Lisa H. had never had a merrier sleigh ride. Her escort was so charming, so handsome, so debonair. Ned was nothing compared to him. As the air grew colder and still colder, Lisa H. hugged her cloak around her. She snuggled. Oh, yes, viewer, that's just what I'm doing. That's just what I'm doing. Try to get a sense of humor, viewer. Can't you get a sense of humor? Or do you want me to change it to viewer? You want your name to be viewer? We're going with viewer. How about that? Let you be included. As the air grew colder and still colder, viewer hugged her cloak around her. Thanks, Mom. She snuggled her hands deeper into the fleece and edged a bit nearer to her escort for warmth. The handsome man was warm, very warm, the only warm thing on this cold, cold night. The sleigh twisted and turned down the long, windy windy road, and viewer's breath turned to frost with every exhalation. Yet the heat emanating from her escort made the seat uncomfortable to sit on, and the sight of viewers closest to the stranger was extremely hot, as if she were sitting next to a roaring fire. She edged away from him until she was pressed against the frigid side of the sleigh. Now one side of her was freezing cold, and the other side was too hot. Sir, she exclaimed suddenly, realizing belatedly that they had traveled a long distance without arriving at their destination. I believe we must be lost. The dance cannot be this far out in the country. Lost? The man said in a deep voice that echoed with the crackle and spit of flames. No, we are not lost, viewer. He hissed the final syllable of her name like a snake. Viewer. And when he turned to look at her, the red glow of his eyes lit the seat. The bare skin of her face heated painfully and tightened across her bones, as if she'd spent too much time in the sun. I am taking you to the dance, the man continued, as she stared hypnotized into his blazing eyes. My dance. Hi, cat got my tongue. Viewer's hair and clothes caught fire from the unbearable heat pulsing from the man beside her. The devil laughed as she screamed in agony. Then devil, sleigh, and horses vanished, and Viewer, her body aflame, fell down, down, down into a looming black pit that ended far, far below in brimstone. Did you like that story, Viewer? You got involved. Cat's got my. I'm still going to just call you Cat's got my. And that's it for tonight, boys and girls, guys and gals, and even Viewer too. Thank you for coming. Hope you all had a wonderful time. Thanks for coming. Tongue. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to mark the place for next time. Next time it'll be Chapter 17, Fireball from Huntington County. All right, Mom. Thank you so much. Good night. Good night, guys. Or across the pond, a great day. It's almost day here, too. Sweet dreams. Love you guys. Bye.